Hey guys, so today we were doing Ferrazos today. And yeah, do that.
Ah, come in.
Did you call for me, Chief Wayne?
Ah, good morning, Naomi. It seems the FBI needs your expertise. I'd like you to head over to the scene immediately.
I'm a medical examiner, not a police officer.
Don't be like that. I can't just turn the government down.
Fine. Well then.
Oh, and Naomi, one more thing. Here's our liaison from the FBI. You should meet him.
You?
Special Investigator Naval. Pleasure to meet you, Doctor.
Yes. Nice to meet you too. What are you doing? You, an FBI agent? This must be a joke.
Please keep your voice down. It's been a while, hasn't it? I didn't have the luxury of witness protection like you.
Just shut up. I'm only here because it's my job. I have nothing to do with you faking your way into the FBI. And don't you ever talk about my past again.
Whatever you say, ma'am.
Good.
Whoa, where are you going?
To the crime scene. Send the address to my GPS.
Oh, I'll have them bring the car up.
You are waiting here. Tell your people on site I'm coming.
But,
Nice try there, little guy. Be a good boy and stay.
Doctor! Oh,
We've received word about you. Miss Kimishima, is it?
Good. This will make things easier. Where's the victim?
He's over here. This way, please.
Victim is Dennis Taylor, 30-year-old male. Neighbor called him fire. The fireman found him. The knife in his hand matched the cut wounds. Probably suicide.
Hmm. What's this?
That's where the fire started, likely before the suicide.
Hmm.
Miss Kimishima?
Hello?
Are you feeling all right?
This was murder. Send the corpse to CIFM immediately. I'll examine it. I want all finger and footprints found in that room. If you find anything, contact me directly. I'll be at the lab.
What was that about?
Well, she does work at the forensic medicine laboratory. Supposedly, she's solved a lot of cases for the FBI. The FBI? That's right. That means we need to keep out of this. Come on, hurry down to the car for the fingerprint powder. Right away.
Let's begin. This is, hey little guy, tell me what we know so far about this.
Right. The victim's 30-year-old Dennis Taylor. At 3:30 p.m., someone in the same building reported a fire. The firefighters found the body in bed 20 minutes later. He had a knife in one hand and a deep wound on his wrist. The door was closed and chained. It's being ruled suicide.
Nonsense. Is that your personal opinion or your FBI training?
Isn't that the most reasonable fitting explanation?
I thought people learned when they grew older.
Doctor, what do you mean by that?
Let's begin. Show me how this life's flame was snuffed out. There's something odd about the index finger on the right hand. Indeed. We can't say what's wrong with it for sure until it's sent in for analysis, though. Is this a bruise? It's oddly shaped, though. This wound on the wrist is believed to be the cause of death. Even though this looks like a self-inflicted wound made with a sharp knife, there's something unnatural about it. That's right. There's only the one wound on the wrist. A single slash, deep enough to reach the artery. No matter who it is, pain is an immediate response to a cut. No one should be able to make a single cut this clean and deep without flinching. I can't say this is proof of homicide, but I can't ignore this incongruity. Yes, there appear to be spots of hemorrhaging in the eyeballs. This isn't a common condition. Perhaps I should ask Little Guy about it.
Dr. Kimishima, the results of the examination of the knife have come in. Let's see, the knife itself is a cheap common brand sold all over the country. It'll be difficult to locate where the knife came from. The blood left on the blade matches the deceased's. Only his fingerprints were found on the handle as well.
I see. At least one thing is clear now. That is... Yes, this knife is believed to have been used to slit the victim's wrist. Even then, we can't prove that unless we compare it to the wound.
There's no mistake. This finger is fractured. Can you send me the details? Get an x-ray performed as soon as possible. Oh, and I have one more piece of good news, Dr. Kimishima. I've received a recording from HQ, a witness's account.
Great, that will be useful. Who's the witness?
It's the deceased's neighbor. We've asked her some questions about the day of the incident.
Perfect timing. Maybe we'll be able to use her account to determine when the fire started.
I'll send the data over to you. Please check it using the recorder in your room.
The shape of the knife blade corresponds with the wound found in the wrist. This means that... Indeed, this appears to be an open and shut case. Then again, this all seems a little too convenient for me.
Hemorrhaging in the eyes, you say? It's a condition called petechia, caused by increased blood pressure and spasms in the blood vessels. It's commonly found as a sign of death by asphyxiation.
Wait a second, that doesn't seem right. If I recall correctly, the victim... The cause of death was thought to be hemorrhaging from a slashed wrist. If the cause of death is asphyxiation, it's possible that we are dealing with a homicide.
Yes, that's right. Oh, it's been so hot lately. Yes, that's right. Oh, it's been so hot lately. I've been keeping the window that faces out into the street open because of the heat. That's how I could hear my neighbor so clearly. It was, let me think, around 3 in the afternoon? Yes, it must have been. I was watching Farewell Danny at the time. I heard this loud noise from my neighbor's room, and then the fire alarm started going off a little after that.
A loud noise followed by the fire. That may be a clue. The way she described it, the sound doesn't seem to have been something exploding. Could the noise have been made by someone in the room? Or something else?
Yes, that's right. Oh, it's been so hot lately. I've been keeping the window that faces out into the street open because of the heat. That's how I could hear my neighbor so clearly. It was, let me think, around 3 in the afternoon? Yes, it must have been. I was watching Farewell Danny at the time. I heard this loud noise from my neighbor's room, and then the fire alarm started going off a little after that. I was really surprised. Oh, I think it was about 10 minutes. I looked out the window and saw smoke coming from next door. I ran over to my neighbor's door, but nobody answered when I pounded on it. But I had to see if there was anyone in there, so I pulled on the door. It was chained from the inside, and no one answered me when I yelled. Yes, the fire truck came soon after that. A firefighter cut the chain on the door and went inside. My neighbor? No, it seems he lived alone. Oh, but I remember an electrician came at around
was sealed, and the neighbor heard the sounds at around 3 p.m. The fire occurred not long after that. What we can deduce from that is... That's right. At least, that's all we can determine using our current information. The deceased was alone at the time, so there's a good chance he made the noise. Still, we need more information to see if there was anyone else in the room when it happened.
Yes, that's right. Oh, it's been so hot. Oh, but I remember an electrician came at around noon.
So an electrician had come to the deceased's room that day at around noon. That was much earlier than when the fire supposedly started, but we should investigate it. Ah, little guy. Perfect timing. It seems an electrician entered the deceased's room around noon on the day of the incident. If he's talked to your people, can you ask them for the recordings of the interview?
Alright, I'll contact them immediately.
Please do. How's the analysis going?
Well, regarding the fracture on the corpse's finger, the right index finger was fractured by an external force. It's rather odd. There are no signs of healing in the fractured area.
No traces of healing. That would mean... That's right. Reactions to injury, like minute healing and hypodermic hemorrhaging, are vital reactions. They only occur while the body is still alive. Thus, if there were no vital reactions to this broken bone, the fracture happened... It must have occurred after the person was already dead.
That would have to be the case. Oh, and to be clear, there's no way that the body was damaged during transport. We take the utmost precautions when moving bodies.
Huh. I hadn't considered that until you brought it up. Still, I'll take your word for it. If his index finger was broken, using the hand would have caused a great deal of pain. With that in mind, he shouldn't have been able to use his right hand all that well. There was a wound in the left wrist and a fractured finger on the right hand. This seems odd because... Yes, the deceased would have had to hold the knife in his injured hand to cut his left wrist. Then he would have had to cut deep enough to sever the artery, putting pressure on his broken finger. Even if he was right-handed, this situation just doesn't add up.
Hello, Dr. Kimishima.
Got the small talk, what do you want?
So cold. HQ's questioned the electrician that the neighbor mentioned. I've sent you the recordings. It seems HQ already knew who he was, so there wasn't a problem.
Now we'll find out why that electrician went to the deceased's room.
Yes. Yes, that's right. Yes, that's fine. He said his hair was broken. Needed to be fixed.
He fixed the air. We should focus on that. There's nothing odd about having a repairman come to work on the ventilation system. But, at the very least, Dennis was still alive when the electrician came. We need to learn about the deceased's condition at that time.
Yes. Yes, that's right. A murder? Yes, that's fine. He said his ear was broken, needed to be fixed. That was around noon, I think. I got the call earlier that day. Yes. He said he needed it fixed that day, so I went straight there when I finished the job I was doing. Yeah, it was really quick. All I had to do was swap out a cable. Right. I think I was only there for about an hour. Yes, I fixed his heater. The customer? Well, the way he looked, I wouldn't be surprised if he committed suicide. Around 3 p.m.? No, I wouldn't have a clue. I was already fixing a washing machine at my next appointment's house at that time.
Yes, these pieces of information do go together. On the day of the incident, the electrician had been asked to repair the deceased's air. The electrician went to the deceased's room at noon and left after finishing his work. Both the deceased's neighbor and the electrician himself agree on this.
Right. I think I was only there for about an hour. Yes, I fixed his heater. The customer? Well, the way he looked, I wouldn't be surprised if he committed suicide.
It wouldn't be surprising if the deceased committed suicide. Sounds like an important detail. Does that mean the deceased had a motive for killing himself? Indeed, both of these facts relate to the deceased. The last time the deceased was seen alive was... That's right. At that time, he seemed... Yes, this comes from the electrician's testimony. The last time we believe the deceased could have been alive is... Indeed. The neighbor reports hearing a sound from the room at that time. Within an hour after that, a fire started in his room. The deceased was later discovered dead. That's all we know at this point. Hey, little guy. I want to go through the information that we've gathered so far.
Alright, let's piece it all together step by step.
Let's do that.
The deceased, Dennis Taylor, was found dead in his apartment. Let's see, his body was discovered because...
Yes, but by the time firefighters arrived on the scene, the fire had already gone out. His corpse was found on the bed.
That's right. The FBI and police initially ruled this case as a suicide. The reason for that was... That's correct. The other reason was
Indeed, the slashed wrist and the chained door point towards suicide. It would seem he was so desperate for death that he would both slit his wrist and set his room on fire. That isn't a surprising conclusion.
the knife blade does match the shape of the wound in the wrist. The blood on the blade matches his DNA. Lastly, the deceased's fingerprints were found on the handle of the knife.
Those are all true, but there was something odd about that wound on his wrist. First, another point is his finger was fractured. Would he have been able to use a knife with a wounded hand?
It's very unlikely, but that's not the only thing that raises doubt. If he did die of the knife wound, he would have bled to death. However, investigating the corpse points to a different cause of death. That is,
That's right, the petechia on the eyes, and the strange bruise on his abdomen. There's more than enough evidence to doubt that this was a suicide.
but according to the electrician's statement, the victim seemed like he might be in a state to commit suicide.
Indeed, there are too many uncertainties to be able to draw a conclusion at this point. I'm going to have to investigate the scene for myself. Little guy, get me approval to enter the area.
Oh, understood. You shouldn't have a problem with Dr. Kimishima. I'm sure my bosses will approve you right away.
Yes, but I don't intend to waste any time. I'm going there right now. You deal with the rest on your end. This is where the deceased's corpse was. If this blood stain is his blood, then...
Doing a handstand. Nice.
Yes, the injury was on his left wrist. From the position of the blood stain, it would appear he was lying face up on the bed. There was only the one blood stain, so he didn't move around much after his wrist was slit. If this truly is a suicide, that would mean that he bled to death here. However, the amount of hemorrhaging here seems to be too small for a man to completely bleed out. Who's this in the picture? The deceased's friend? I see. I was so caught up in the case that I didn't check the man's background. Hello, little guy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Did you need something, Dr. Kimishima?
Yes. Can you do me a favor and look into the deceased's friends? I'm going to send you a picture right now. Try getting a hold on whoever that is.
Alright. Is there anything in particular you'd like us to find out?
Let's see. First, about the deceased himself. It'd be great to find out more about the day of the incident.
Alright. I'll make preparations to have them questioned. I'll send you the recordings of their answers, so please check the recorder.
Good. I'm glad you can get on this so quickly. I'll be counting on you. This is the table. Now that I look closely, the burns are most severe right here. If I send this for analysis, I might find out what was on fire on the table. It's the ceiling fan. There's a speed selector and a timer. One of the blades seems to be broken now. The electrician had supposedly come to fix the air. I need to review his testimony to confirm what he actually fixed.
What you want, man? Why are you calling me out here? Huh? You want to talk about Dennis? You're better off asking his girlfriend. Her name's, Stella. Yeah, she's at the club down on Roulette Street. Yeah, she can probably tell you more about Dennis than I can. That guy, huh? No, nothing. He's a friend of mine, you know? I don't hate him. We've been drinking together the night before he died, after all. He did seem pretty flush recently, if you know what I mean. He called me up out of the blue and, said he'd pick up the tab that night. That wasn't really important. It was just how he normally brags. He was all proud of this red Portland Jacks t-shirt he was wearing, too.
A Portland Jacks t-shirt. If he was telling the truth, the victim was wearing that shirt on the day of the incident. In any case, after hearing this testimony, it seems hard to believe that the deceased would have committed suicide. That reminds me, the man said in his interview that the deceased had a girlfriend. I wonder if HQ knows who she is. This is worth asking Little Guy about.
Yes, did you call Dr. Kimishima?
I need you to look into somebody for me. A woman named Stella Abbott.
Oh, the deceased's girlfriend? Well, technically his ex.
That doesn't matter. Can you find her?
We already have. HQ's just finished questioning her. Oh, should I send you the recording?
Please. Now, if you don't mind. I feel like I'm getting closer to understanding who Dennis Taylor really is. That reminds me. Someone mentioned the clothing that the deceased was wearing on the day of the incident. That's odd. There's nothing that stands out about the clothing. Somebody said something about what the deceased had been wearing that day. This does raise some doubts. The electrician supposedly came to the victim's room to fix his air, but he didn't repair the ceiling fan? Or did the fan break after the electrician had left? In any case, I'll need to hear his account again. Something about this shirt is bothering me. That's right. The deceased was apparently wearing a red t-shirt on the day of the incident. Did he change after he got home? Or was there some reason for changing his shirt?
This is a blood stain. One moment, please. I did some quick calculations. A stain of that size would take about 800 milliliters of blood.
The average adult male would have to lose at least 1,500 milliliters in order to bleed to death. This means that... Well, the amount of blood loss required varies from person to person, so this isn't quite proof. It is unusual, though. I'll have to remember it.
Dr. Kimishima, did you receive the voice data?
From the deceased's girlfriend? Have you sent it?
You should be able to listen to it using a recorder. Please listen to it when you can.
Right. First, I want to know about the deceased's source of income.
It did seem fairly well off for somebody without a steady job.
Indeed. I'll be listening for that while I'm going over the recording.
Yes, I fixed his heater.
He fixed the heater. Something about that seems odd. Yes, the deceased's neighbor mentioned that. Summer is already starting. And yet, on the day of the incident, the deceased wanted to have his heater repaired? There's something strange about this after all.
Seriously? What do you guys want? I've got work to do, so let's get this over with. Huh? Dennis? You mean Dennis Taylor? Wow, that name brings back bad memories. We broke up years ago. Yeah, at first I thought he was an interesting guy, pretty cool and all. But he never had a job, and he just kind of wandered through life. Oh, but he always had money. I'm sure he didn't come by it honestly. Are you really this slow? Don't you get it? Drugs. He was a drug dealer.
Good heavens. The deceased's been holding on to quite a secret. I'm going to have to change the way I approach this case. Let's go through the information we have, now that we know the deceased's true identity. Unbelievable. The deceased had this hidden dark side to him.
This is looking more and more like a case worth investigating. If Dennis Taylor was a drug dealer, then there could be a variety of reasons to kill him.
Still, I can't let my prejudices cloud the truth. However, it seems that we're going to have to change our views regarding this case.
Right. I'll prepare the CSI's ALS.
ALS, the advanced light source that can adjust the wavelength being emitted?
That's right. An object's visibility depends on the light being reflected from that object. The ALS lets you select a particular wavelength to focus only on what you want to see.
Or hide what you don't want to see.
Oh, no.
I'll try using it. Thanks, Hilda. white powder scattered on the floor. It looks like there are footprints in it. I can guess at what this powder is, but I should send it in for analysis just in case. This powder on the floor seems to trail behind the shelf. Bingo. There's more of that powder inside this hole in the wall. What an obvious place for a hiding spot. Mr. Taylor wasn't all that clever. I still have doubts. My main concern about this is... Yes, fans circulate air within a room. If the owner was having his air system fixed, the fan should have been considered part of it. Why then would the electrician fix only the heater and not the ceiling fan?
Dr. Kimishima, about that white powder that was spread on the floor, there were traces of drugs found within it. A number of different sets of footprints were identified in that powder as well. They all belong to the firefighters, police, and you, of course.
I see. That means... Exactly. That would be the case. The room belonged to the deceased. If the drugs had been spread on the floor before the incident, his footprints should be there as well. But the only footprints in the room were from people who had entered after the fire. This would mean that the drugs would have to have been spread before or soon after the fire began. Alright, let's go over the information we've gathered. First, the white powder. Yes, the trail of drugs led directly to the hole behind the shelf. If the same powder from the floor was inside the hole, then... That's right. But there weren't any drugs inside the hole. The layer of drugs had footprints from the firefighters, the police, and me left in it. All of the footprints had something in common. Indeed, there weren't any footprints from before the time the fire began. So from this, we can deduce that the drugs must have been scattered on the floor when... Yes. If I take this even further, I'd say that it would have been after Mr. Taylor stopped moving. In other words, it must have happened between his death and when the fire started. But why were there drugs on the floor?
Into the slop, what the hell?
spilled out when someone removed the drugs from the hole in the wall. Dennis Taylor was killed, and someone walked out with the drugs. I'm starting to get a clearer picture of what happened here, but I need to move on to the next step. I should consult with a little guy about this.
Dr. Kimishima, can you confirm that it's a murder after all?
I don't know how you heard about that so quickly, little guy. Have you been eavesdropping on me?
No,
Forget it. I can see right through you.
oh, right, I have a new tool for you. It's luminol. Do I need to explain it to you?
A chemiluminescent material based on reducing 5-nitrophenol hydrazide with sodium dithionite. It reacts to iron and hemoglobin by glowing, making it useful to find otherwise hidden bloodstains. Anything else?
No.
Good. I just spray this onto suspicious areas, then shine the ALS on it. I'm sure it will be useful. Thank you, little guy. So there were bloodstains here too. If these are from the deceased, we may be able to use this with something else that we know. This. There's a rope wrapped around the shaft of the ceiling fan. There's no mistake. Those are bloodstains. Huh. There's a reaction to blood on the screw that's securing the doorknob. The screw seems rather loose as well. Come to think of it, the door to this room was chained shut when the fire started. Could this be related to that in some way?
Oh, Dr. Kimishima, sorry for the wait. The analysis of the burnt material has come back from the laboratory. Calcium hydroxide was detected in the sample.
Calcium hydroxide? You mean slaked lime?
Yes, small amounts of quicklime were also detected. Quicklime is a substance that releases a great deal of heat when it reacts with water.
Oh, I see. So this was...
I agree, but isn't it odd? If the killer wanted to start a fire, there are far easier ways to go about it.
You're right. There must have been a reason for this. It's our job to investigate that, isn't it? Yes, these two pieces can be combined into one. The rope wrapped around the ceiling fan is what caused it to break. The question now is why there was a rope around it in the first place.
What's this? Just looks like a loose screw to me.
Think harder, little guy. How was the room when the firefighters arrived to the scene? The entrance was closed, but was it completely inaccessible? That's right. The chain on the door had been attached, but the door itself wasn't locked.
Sorry, but the door only opens about 15 centimeters with the chain attached. I don't even think a small child could get through a space that small.
You're so unimaginative. Flex your mind and think about it. Listen to me. What I'm trying to tell you is... This loose screw tells us everything. With the screw removed, the entire plate on the door can be swiveled around by the doorknob. The plate itself is about 20 centimeters long, so the gap increases to almost 35 centimeters. How big does somebody have to be that he couldn't fit through a space that size?
Oh, I see now. That's more than enough room he could pass the door. So the killer just screwed the plate back on from the outside after he left the room then.
I think that's the most likely explanation. But the killer was in plain sight once he was outside the door. He wanted to finish quickly. The killer couldn't completely tighten the screw and left the area as we found it.
Well, that proves that this isn't quite the locked room mystery we thought it was.
Huh. Still, this doesn't help us figure out who the killer is. I need to investigate the situation in more detail. That's right. There were 2 different bloodstains left in the deceased's room. Now, which of these bloodstains happened first? That's true. Unless the corpse got up and walked over by itself. It's most likely that the deceased died where the first bloodstains were found, and then was carried to the bed afterwards. That would explain why there was such a small amount of blood on the bed itself.
Dr. Kimishima, we've identified the blood on the screw. It's a DNA match with the victim, Dennis Taylor. Why would his blood be there of all places?
It's simple. What happened was... That's right. It's probably because he touched the murder weapon.
Wait, why would the killer touch that screw with the murder weapon?
He would have to, if the weapon was... Yes, a screwdriver. It was likely used to both loosen and tighten that screw.
I see. Then the screwdriver left the blood on the screw while he was covering his tracks.
Yes. These pieces of information are hiding an important fact. I didn't notice because the bleeding had stopped completely, but this isn't a bruise. It's a stab wound. This strange pattern here is likely... Yes, that's right. It's indisputable evidence that the weapon was jammed in so deeply that the grip left a bruise. The fire began near the fallen table. Calcium hydroxide was found in the substance on the floor there. Calcium hydroxide is formed through the reaction of quicklime and water. That reaction creates something else as well. Yes. Quicklime releases 65 kilojoules of energy per mole when it reacts with water. This was the method used to start the fire in this room. First, you would place a glass of water on the table. You would also put quicklime around the floor and on the table near the glass. When the table falls over, the hydration heat caused by the reaction would cause a fire. But why would the killer go through such a complicated plan to start a fire?
That's just how it rolls. The fuck?
That's right. If all he wanted was a fire, he could have just set something on fire. The killer needed to have a delay until the fire began. That's why he devised a plan that made use of two components. Yes, this trick relied on a ceiling fan and a rope. The killer wrapped one end of the rope around the fan and tied the other to a table leg. When the fan activated according to its timer, the fan wound the rope up, flipping the table over and spilling the water onto the quicklime. However, there's still one basic question left to be asked. Why did the killer have to set the room on fire in the first place? Why go through this extravagant setup to make it happen? The reason for that is... Exactly. Due to the fact that there was nothing flammable added to the body itself. The culprit never intended for the corpse and the evidence to be destroyed in the fire. Instead, the killer wanted to cause a commotion that would draw attention to the corpse. Now then, why would that be? That's right. By delaying the start of the fire. The plan was to have enough time to create a viable alibi for when the fire began. It's easy. I mean, with this method of misdirection, the culprit could start a fire hours after having left the crime scene entirely. This is the entire truth behind this mysterious arson. Yes, these do lead the way to a definite truth. Looking at the location of the bruise, the tip of the screwdriver must have pierced Dennis's lung. His lung would then rupture, causing pulmonary emphysema, and he would have suffocated. This explains the spots of hemorrhaging in the corpse's eyes. What actually happened that day is slowly coming to light now. Yes, these two can tell us how the murder happened. On the date of the incident, the killer came to the victim's room and stabbed him in the torso. The murder weapon was... Yes, the screwdriver pierced the victim's lung, causing pulmonary emphysema. This caused respiratory problems due to lung failure. Thus, the cause of death was... After this, the killer moved the victim to the bed. This is most likely because... Indeed. The murderer then arranged the corpse to make the death appear to be a suicide. That is what I believe took place, according to the evidence we have. It's true then. This does have to do with the victim. But I wonder why. I get the feeling that there's something very wrong about this. Indeed. At first glance, it doesn't seem like these refer to the same person at all. On the one hand, drug-dealing scum enjoying his life. On the other, a man with suicidal depression. Either one of these clues is false, or there's more to this shady business that I haven't found out. In either case, the truth of the matter is that he was indeed a drug dealer. This is odd. There's something missing that should be here. If the puncture wound in the abdomen is the true cause of death, right, there should be blood stains in a hole where the screwdriver went through his clothing. Yes, these pieces of information can tell us something. According to Mr. Taylor's friend, on the day of the incident, Dennis had been wearing... That's right. He was supposedly wearing a red Portland Jacks t-shirt that day, but when his body was discovered, he was wearing... Yes, his corpse was found wearing a white shirt. In other words, his clothing had changed. And yet, if that was all we know, we couldn't rule out if the deceased had changed his shirt himself. However, if he had, there would still be discrepancy. Yes, the corpse had a wound that wasn't reflected by the state of the clothing he was wearing. There's only one answer to this puzzle, and that is... Indeed. Whoever had killed Mr. Taylor replaced the shirt he was wearing after killing him. The reason for doing that was... Exactly. It was probably to hide the stab wound and make us believe that cut wrist was the cause of death. The killer staged the suicide in order to mislead us. I see. These two are related. There are no vital reactions to the broken finger. That means the damage occurred after death, considering that the killer must have changed the victim's clothing after death.
What the fuck is these answers? What the fuck?
That's right. The killer broke the corpse's finger while changing the shirt on the body.
Dr. Kimishima, how's How's the investigation going?
I've almost uncovered the deception, but the truth hasn't completely been revealed.
I see. So we can't arrest the culprit yet.
That's right. I need conclusive evidence that can help us identify the killer.
The most reliable giveaway would be if we could find a fingerprint at the crime scene. However, only the victim's fingerprints were found when HQ searched the room.
Oh, I'm not surprised, considering the lengths the killer's gone to hide his tracks. The murderer was probably wearing gloves while the crime was being committed.
Isn't there anything the killer might have touched?
Something that would require him to take his gloves off? It's hard to think of anything.
Well, the best evidence would be on a hard, slick, inorganic substance. It doesn't matter what size it is.
All we can investigate are the crime scene, the corpse, and what the corpse was wearing. Could there be anything among those items that the killer touched with a bare hand? I'll have to investigate further. Thank you, little guy. The killer put this shirt on the victim's corpse after the murder took place. That would mean that the killer would have had to button the shirt up as well. Buttoning up a shirt with gloves on is no easy task. If my predictions are correct,
The buttons on the victim's clothes, huh? I'll look into them right away. One moment, please.
hopefully this will help us find the identity of our mystery murderer.
Dr. Kirishima, it was there. I found it. There's a fingerprint from someone who isn't the victim. It's, right thumb.
Great. Run the print through the list of registered offenders immediately.
Leave it to me. Such an attention to detail has gone into this. It can't possibly be a first-time offender. There has to be a match for this fingerprint in our records.
I sincerely hope so. This case should be over soon.
Let's go.
The dead shall speak. Let's put together the truth of what happened here. The victim in this case is 30-year-old Dennis Taylor. As there's no motive for murder, it's a suspected suicide. However, the victim had a hidden other side. This card is the one with proof of that. Yes, while he did work at the bar, he also dealt drugs. This case is related to the victim's drug activities. The proof of that is on this card. Indeed, the drugs hidden behind the shelf were missing. The killer went into Taylor's room to kill him for his drugs. The real cause of the victim's death can tell us that. I know that because of this card. Right. The wound on the wrist was not the true cause. Next, the killer disguised the murder as a suicide. This card proves the misdirection used to hide the murder. Yes, the appearance of suicide covered up the real cause. The next topic is the secret hidden in the room itself. The murderer used a trick to create a locked room mystery. It was made to seem as if the victim was the only one there. This card shows the trick that had been used. Exactly. The killer thought this would clear his trail. And yet, the culprit had one more way to hide from suspicion. That was to hide when the murder itself took place. This card shows how he went about that ruse. The murder took place 3 hours prior to the fire's start. It's natural to assume that if the room was locked, then the crime and the fire would be at the same time. The plan was perfect. No fingerprints were left in the room. However, there was one thing the killer hadn't counted on. There was one task he needed to remove his gloves to do. This card is evidence of that task. He probably couldn't button the clothes with his gloves on. No matter how small the buttons, they were still prints. Even a fragment of a fingerprint can be used to identify him. The victim must have been surprised. After all, he thought the killer was a customer. This is what he said at the very end. The
That's
final
old.
flickers of this soul's light show me the truth.
Wow.
Who's there?
I'm sorry. I must have surprised you.
You're that electrician. Why are you here?
Oh, I was called up because the switchboard blew. I need to have it fixed by tomorrow.
I see. That sounds difficult. Freeze. Don't move. I see corpses all day, one more than a problem.
Naomi! Are you hurt? I'm sorry. I should have stayed.
I've solved the case. I'll give you my report tomorrow.
The report can wait. Naomi, you must think of your safety.
Nobody lives forever. Even if I died today, it'd just be earlier than I expected.
Alright, we're gonna take a little break.